Hello, everybody. Let's rant.
So today we're doing a tier list of every single Mixels tribe because we wanted to.
In 27th place, we have the Series 2 Frosticons. Part of the thing we're going to struggle with for most of this tier list is having one, really good character in a batch that is just really, really not as top tier Mixels, and it hurts us to put it down this low, but we're ranking the whole tribe. With that being said, this isn't really one of those.
Yeah, I mean, all the characters look horrible, and the posability is absolutely awful. As you can see, this guy's arms only go up and down. I like usually the ball joint sockets so they can move freely. And then
Yeah,
basically, neither of us like the Mixels dragons. They just look so
yeah.
bad.
We don't personally like how they work, especially with the posability. Their legs don't really have much of that. So usually those are going to be holding down some really good characters.
Absolutely. All right. In 26th place, we have the Munchos. And the reason
Now,
why
yeah.
And the reason why is because, again, with the bad posability, this guy's arms spin kind of like a fidget spinner, but the problem is that his arms kind of only go up and down.
All of their arms only go up and down, and while they do have playability features, they're not exactly the best you've ever seen. All their legs are posable, but we're looking more for arms because unless they're both posable, there's not a lot of really character to them.
Yes, and not only that, but one of the characters in the Munchos is basically just a big box.
Yeah,
Yeah.
which is another problem later on with the
MCPD.
Mixel City Police Department. Well, we'll get up there.
Yeah.
Next up, we have number 25, the Whiz-tastics. We don't really personally just like this one. There's not a lot of great movability, and again, there's a dragon, so another issue there.
Yes, and I would like to point out the legs on the spider. They are not. We do
Uh,
refer to the wizard-looking guy as Harry Potter because why not? In 24th place, we have the Newsers because of bad posability, but it was a really sad moment for us because of one of the funniest characters in the entire show. But otherwise, nothing good about this. No redeemable qualities. They all are just bad. Would you like to take this
it's a
away?
real shame because the design is so good. Like they went crazy with this blue and yellow dynamic, which I really liked. But they have like zero posability. I don't entirely like how Lego could have solved so many issues we have with this by making all of the arms and legs be like ball jointed.
And the worst part is, it would be so easy to substitute a ball joint, but they didn't. I don't know if it's because of budget cuts or like the cost of those ball joints, but it's just such a shame. All right.
Number 23, we have the medics.
The reason why we have them so low is because I know it sucks because this tooth guy is so good, and he has the movable arms too. But the problem with this is that all the other characters just don't look good in the slightest. For example, here we just have a dental light, which, it's not that great, and I don't think it has
It
good
could have been made
posability.
better. It could have been made better.
And for this guy, what even is that supposed to be? Like, come on.
Yeah. My one of my personal favorite, I don't know, top 10, but I don't know, Mixels has to be Tooth, and it hurts me so much to put him down here because like I said earlier, we're getting to the point where there's one off really good characters, and then the other two are just holding it down so much.
Another good quality about this entire tribe is that the Lego pieces for the eyes are all different. Like, if you were trying to buy different eye pieces, this has two of the Lego minifigure head eyes, one of the 2x2 tile eyes, and then two of the Technic ball joint eyes. So, it's really good for
Yeah,
getting eyes, but no one likes them, so. Alright, in number 22, we have the Fang Gang. I think they're
Bang
called the
gang.
Fang Gang, yeah. The
Yeah.
reason we put them so low is not because of the characters' designs. After all, they do look pretty good. It's mostly about posability here. For this one, the legs pretty much only go left and right, and they're kind of connected, so there's not really that much posability there. Um, for him, his arms only go up and down, and you don't even get to mess with his fingers. And finally, the dog is why we have him so low. it's because of the dog having the unmovable legs. They're just kind of
They,
connected to pieces and they don't even move, which brings them so low, which is kind of sad because Gaba and I think it was Chomley.
Chumley, or something like that.
They both have really, really good designs, and I could imagine putting a Nixel in this guy's mouth. But it's just the posability really brings him down here.
Yeah, it's kind of sad to see things like the dog. It's like
So
I
bad.
don't know what else they would have done because they wanted to make them really small, but it's just there's no posability on that thing at all besides opening and closing the mouth, and I don't think that's enough.
And I don't even think a Nixel could fit into his mouth. Like his mouth would
I
have to
don't
be
know.
wide open just for a Nixel to fit in there.
Yeah. Our 21st spot is the glow keys. These are really good if you want to get glow in the dark pieces. However, arms are mostly non-existent for this whole crew. In fact, they're entirely non-existent. You have wings and legs, and while this crew it can be like very cool to have, and I think it would be fun to have, it just doesn't really seem like the kind of mixels that you like. There's not a lot to do with these guys. Like, you get them, you have some fun with them, but at the end of the day, you can kind of just move around the legs, and that's all you can do.
Yes, I understand because some of the playability features with a lot of the other Mixels can have you playing with them for a long time. But as for these guys, the only good feature is at night or in the dark. So it kind of takes
Yeah,
away from the whole Mixels thing. And plus, they're the only
yeah,
people or Mixel tribe to have the glow in the dark pieces, and it's a shame that they couldn't have done better designs.
yeah,
Because
absolutely.
kind of ugly.
Yeah. The one reason why, and I'm going to end it with this, the one reason why it is higher with such, like, poor playability features is that the designs aren't really that bad. Like, they did it pretty decently.
Alright, in the number 20 spot, we have the ninjas. Um, The reason we have them low, as for like pretty much all of them, the posability is just garbage.
I mean,
And
yeah.
yeah,
Well,
they're not horrible designs either, but it's just that they're so, I don't know how to describe it. It's not great.
the designs are fine, but I think they have too much black with the orange and black, which the flexors did better. They're later up on the list. These ninjas, while their arms and legs do move like the way we want them to, um I don't remember any of the words for this, but you explained it perfectly before
All right.
this, so
So
we're gonna have you. Yeah.
here's the reason why. Here's the reason why we have them low. Even though these arms are connected to ball joints, they'll only go up and down and left and right if you position them correctly. And even then, if you tried to put his arm like forward, it would have to go up a little, which is not great.
Yeah. So that's our thoughts on that.
All right, in the number 19 spot, we have the MCPD. Take it away.
So the MCPD, there's not a lot wrong with this crew except for the one character, which
As we said below with the Munchos, one of the characters here is just a box, and that's about it. Plus, his arms only go up and down, which isn't great. His name is
yeah, and
Busto, I think.
what?
His name is Busto, I think.
Hmm. Yeah, and he doesn't even have any legs.
All right, he has the smallest little stubby legs, and they only go up and down, which definitely makes it lower on this list.
Yeah, and while one of the characters does have a cookie roni, we're not counting the individual pieces, like if it comes with a mixel or if it comes with a cubit, because if we were, they would be really high on this list. And it's just not that fair to put up a tribe so high just because they have a rare piece. I think that the other two characters are pretty decent. I like how they added a wheel for that one, so then it could have like a little individuality because I don't think any of the others have like actual wheels that they move around on. But with the giant box thing, we'll talk about it later with the Trashos group because we have different opinions on that. In the 18th spot, we have the Series 3 Glorp Corp. Now, this is a issue that we've had in the past with the dog especially, but let's save that for later. For the other ones, they have really decent like pieces and they're really interesting to build, but there's not a lot of arm movement and posability, which is a big thing that we're going for this list is like if you gave it to a child, how long would they actually like mess with it and have fun with it? Because while that one does have like double, maybe even triple jointed legs, I don't personally think that that's going to do it. Because, you also need to take into consideration the hands. Now, when we do make our way to the dog, this is what makes it fall down even a little bit lower. The Fang Gang had a dog in the past, but since these are designed betters, they go up there. But the dog, again, has the same leg issue that makes it so that only the mouth and maybe if it has a tail, more movable.
As I was going to say, I do think that even though there are a lot of ball joints in the tall guy's legs, he might have trouble standing up in real life. If anyone in the comments owns this Mixel, please leave a comment about whether he stands well or not, because I feel like he would be very unbalanced with all that design. As for the dog, um, the design's good with using the entire, you know, what are they called again? The thing above the wheel on cars. They use that above the eyes to make a sort of circular shape.
Hmm,
But
they do.
otherwise the mouth opens a lot more, which adds a lot of space for a Nixel, which I think is great. And as the Ranter 2 said earlier, the legs here do not really have that much movement, similar to the Fanging.
Yes, apparently, uh, the first ranter who just spoke, part of his ranking is having a mixel being able to fit in one's mouth, which we will discuss later. Part of the origin.
Especially if it looks like it's supposed to. Like, if you're supposed to open his mouth, you'd want to put a Nixel in there and bite really hard on him. In the 17th spot, we have the Series 5 Frosticons. The reason we have them low is mostly due to posability again. With this guy,
Yep.
I mean, his legs are. Could you even consider those legs? He'd be fun to push down the slide if you have a slide at your house, but otherwise, he's mostly just a kind of undesigned guy.
Yeah, I can see the issue with his legs. I think he's more meant to be like a sort of sled guy. So then you can kind of like push him around if you have like a carpeted floor. But there's not a lot of mobility. But it does get higher up on the list because of the pieces that some of them include on like the character that are just really like interesting. Like Krog over here has some really interesting pieces that you'd only find in like really rare like Ninjago sets or things like that. They're also just really unique and before Ranter 1 says anything, he do got the chompers.
Yes, he does indeed chomp, but a Nixel is not fit in his mouth. Therefore, he's kind of disqualified from this, because I don't even think his mouth could open that wide. But otherwise, very good Mixel. His arms go up and down, his hands are twistable, his legs are very short and stubby, which definitely gets him lower on the list. And
Yeah.
as for the Mixel on the right, the one with the eyebrows, looks like he's from Angry Birds. But the Mixel on the right definitely looks like he has the least posability. His legs can pretty much only go up and down and sideways. His arms are the shortest and stubbiest arms I've seen on a Mixel. And otherwise, it's just not a great design. Not that many rare pieces either.
In the 16th spot, we have the Series 4 Infernites. Now, there are some characters that are pretty decent on this, but again, with the posability, we're not really having it. Part of the reason why it is up here is with the character like Bernard, where he actually has like little eye like sockets that they fit into, which is really creative. We love creativity in a Mixel. It just makes them a lot better.
Yes, and I do like the fire pieces they used on them. Like, these aren't seen in that many sets, and I really wish they were, because it's a cool gradient effect. And as for Bernard, the fire can actually go up and down in his mouth if you use the hinge piece they provided.
And you could probably also take out the fire so he's not constantly spewing fire.
So he's not in
Um, part
constant
of
pain.
the part of the thing that makes this rank a little bit lower is besides Bernard, the other two have worse posability, and it just doesn't really work that well.
I agree. All right. In the number 15 spot, we have the Mixies. The reason why these guys are low is, again, with all the posability, but I would like to point out the good designs that brought them higher than some of the others. Because besides all the bad posability, they went crazy with the designs. For
Yeah,
example,
I agree.
the Mixel on the right is basically just a drum set. Love that. The Mixel on the left has a trumpet, and then in the middle we have Jamsey, which is basically just an electric guitar holding a microphone.
Yeah, really, really good designs all out here. I think with Jamsey also, there's a playability feature where you can make the mouse open and close. But the other ones are really nice. I'm a personal fan of the drum set because the back arms can actually have like full posability, not just like up and down.
And even then, with the drum set, the playability is great because I'm sure the arms go up and down enough to a point where you can make those drumsticks hit them on like the drum pieces.
Absolutely, yeah. In the 14th spot, we have the Spikles.
We have quite a bit of posability here with the first two, but it's the last one that really brings it down. Scorpy has 8 legs that only go up and down, and then a
Yeah,
tail which isn't that posable.
well, it's sort of posable. It can move all the way around. But while Scorpy is a really nice character that has like a lot to it, it's not. It doesn't have the best posability. Also, the taller one has the same balance issue, but it can open its mouth
In fact, it does
pretty
not. I'm
high.
100% sure it wouldn't have that balancing issue because of how big the feet are. It provides a great base for the whole entire Mixel, which is definitely something to look up to. And
Yeah,
as Rancher 2 is about to say, his mouth does open. I think barely enough to fit a Mixel, but his jaw would have to be very wide.
yeah. But his arms do only go up and down, if I'm seeing that correctly. Um, but the shorter one that isn't Scorpy is pretty good on the posability. I don't see many issues with him. He's a bit basic, but I like how they did a swaparoo instead of having really big legs and short arms. They actually did a reverse with this one, so I think it was really, really nice. And you could probably have him sitting down, arms spread, just chilling.
In the 13th spot, we have the Weldos. These are a great tribe altogether with the designs of the characters, but sadly, it is the posability again.
Yeah, the arms don't really work that well, and I think we have the same issue from earlier with our personal favorite Weldo, where his legs just don't don't have a lot of posability to them. But he does have the big bulky fingers, which we tend to like often. But I think they did really creative with this crew. That's why it's so like high up there. I don't think we like the Series 4 Infernites that we already talked about. The flamethrower guy wasn't our personal favorite, and seeing him sort of return as the
Chainsaw
chainsaw
Man.
guy didn't really work. But the one that people don't really seem to remember is the last one, which is pretty creative. They used, I believe, silver bananas for eyebrows, and he doesn't have great posability, but he's a nice little guy.
I do agree there with the banana eyebrows. And as for the mouth, they used a rock, which is very nice.
Yes, I do believe you would also be satisfied to know that you could probably fit a Mixel inside of the mouth of
Alright, it's
I don't
the
know his name. In our number 12 spot, we have the Series 6 Glorp Corp. We think it's better than the past one because of slight there's a bit of posability that we really like. There's a dragon here, but it's our favorite dragon yet because for some reason apparently they had mastered how to make a like decent looking dragon, still with the feet issue though. We don't really like that. But they mastered how to make a decent looking dragon, and they said, now let's just go back to the original stuff. The pieces on these ones are really nice, creative, using the little snot on the nerd as like a little crystal thing. Really like that. And this last one over here has nice, stable feet, still with the arm issue, and he can open his mouth. I think they can all open their mouth, except for the dragon. Part of the reason why it's a little bit lower on the list.
In number 11, we have the MCFD, also known as the Mixopolis City Fire Department. And as for the character designs, they got real creative with this. On the far left, we have Mixel named Splasho, which has water spewing out of his mouth. Obviously, he is a fire hydrant. Love that design, and I love how they used the vehicle fenders as the sides of his mouth. Very creative. And for the main Mixel, I could say they could have gone a little better with that movement. His arms basically only go up and down, but he's less of a dragon, more of a helicopter sort of thing. And obviously on the far right, we have a Mixel that is just a ladder, like a fire ladder. His arms sadly only go up and down, but they use wheels that don't actually spin on his feet. They're just there for show. Very cool design overall. I could say they could be a little better, but otherwise, I'd say they definitely earned their spot on 11th.
Yeah, I'd like to touch up on that one really quickly. The fire hydrant, I would say, is probably the best character in my and probably your personal opinions. Love the double jointed arms they've got on there. Really lovely. For the latter one, I think it's really creative how it can open and close its mouth, even if the ladder would stick out with it fully closed, but, it's fine. The helicopter is holding it down a little bit. It's so hard to rank these Mixels because there's so many that are like so good, but then there's one that's I'm kind of glad that we're entering this top 10 spot. And while we're talking about that, let's move on. Number 10, we have one of the OG three tribes, the Cragsters. These are clearly holding down the original 9 Mixels, three tribes. It is clearly the worst, but that doesn't mean it has some good qualities. The character designs here are really nice, except for what I want to say is the leader, the one with the really big hand and the smaller arm. Don't personally like that one because his face has a little, like, jagged thing. It doesn't really look that good in my opinion, holding it down a bit. It needs to be put up here so high because it's what everybody remembers. You remember the Mixels, you remember the main three, but this is the one you remember the least. You like, oh yeah, I remember the classic Infernites, I remember the Electroids, the Cragsters. I didn't know they were called the Cragsters, but I remember them.
Yes,
You know,
absolutely. And I would like to point out the Mixel on the left, where they utilized a golden gemstone on his head and a kind of rare, I believe, rock piece for his chest. I love that whole cobblestone looking design where it's kind of cracked
yeah,
a bit, but
absolutely.
absolutely.
The one in the middle there, same sort of like tall guys, short arms, but this time they only move side to side. Really interesting that that's what they went with. They must have learned from their mistakes since that's not as satisfying as having it up to down, but it's still not as satisfying as having it with like a ball joint. The feet are decently stable, so I think that would work a bit for keeping it balanced.
Number 9, we have the Flexors. As we
Yes.
were saying earlier with the ninjas, where they had the orange and black sort of color scheme, these guys definitely pull it off way better because there's a perfect balance of black and orange. And the reason they're lower on our list at the number 9 spot is definitely because of the whole posability again. For the main guy in the middle, his legs pretty much only go up and down, and there are only 6 legs. And the
Yeah.
guys on the left and right, their legs are basically just big tripods, which isn't great.
With that being said, I personally really like these ones. There's the one, actually, I think two of them can open and close their mouths. I think it's really creative how the main little crab-ish guy has actually little black tentacles that he can move up his down as if they were his arms, which I believe are, maybe they're not, but,
Those pieces are
stuff
also
like that.
flexible. They're one of the rarer, more flexible Lego pieces. And again, with these eyes, you get all three types of eyes in this one tribe.
Yeah, I also really like the squid looking one. I think it's really creative how they did that with the legs, and I think it'd be really fun to have him just like attached to things. He looks like he would be fun to mess with. The tripod, I would say, is the worst one out of all of these threes. We personally don't like the little orange hats on him, but that's fine because he has a giant mustache that makes him look a bit better. And while these all are pretty similar, with the legs having like a specific like sort of theme to them, it's all mainly just the legs. I think they did it in a pretty decent way, better than some other ones could.
And in the
Yes.
number 8th spot, we have the Series 1 Infernites.
We personally think that these ones aren't the absolute best of the best. However, they are extremely iconic here. Whenever you think of Mixels, you gotta think of like the Legos. You're like, oh, I liked those Legos. Let's think about some. You immediately think to Flame. He is the iconic Mixel. He's what you remember. He's him. But other than him being just iconic, his arm posability isn't the greatest, neither is the one on the right, but we personally have put Flane aside, and we've really liked Volk for no reason.
I would like to follow up on that. It is very much no reason. But his legs are posable along with his arms, but the fingers are really what gets me there. He has three opposable fingers along with his movable arms, which can be used to, I guess, grip things, which I think it would be really cool to do.
Yeah, he's a nice, silly little goober, and that's just what counts for Mixels. You gotta make it nice and silly. Moving on to our number 7 spot, we have the Pirates. So, these ones are really creative, and clearly Loot is the star of all of these. He looks really sick, therefore, him being up high on this list. The one holding it down clearly is the Skull, not being the best in our opinion. In my opinion, personally, I think it looks more of like a Lego, like, ideas little packet you would just, like, get, and you would have to just like build as a little mini thing. Just
Yes,
like a
I'd like to follow up on the skull. If you've ever played with Legos, you've probably bought those Lego classic boxes where they just give you a bunch of pieces. I assume that's what Ranter 2 was talking about when he said the Lego ideas thing. Basically they'd give you a bunch of parts in a big box, and they'd give you some instructions, and you'd have to
yeah.
build some cool stuff. He definitely looks like something you'd get from the newer classic sets. Back in the day, they used to be a lot more simple, but definitely not a great guy. As for the guy on the right, the shark, I would hate to have him so low because of how good he looks, but it's definitely the legs and the arms that get it for me. Because his arms are basically very, very short and stubby, including that hook, which really keeps it low. And for his legs, they're basically just big shoes, and you probably couldn't even bring them up that much if you tried because of that big wedge piece.
Yes, and as we are entering sort of near the top 5 spot, we are getting 2 Mixels that we just really like, but with a few minor qualities. Here we are going up to the number 6 spot with the
Medievals. Very much in the show, they were British. Pretty much every single one. But that's not the reason we have them low. The reason
he's
we have
high,
them
dude.
pretty
He's
low.
he's top 6.
The reason we have them here is most probably because of the designs. Um, Two of the other ones are keeping them down. For example, the Camelot and then the sort of horse, I could assume. The wings are very cool on the horse, but otherwise, I just don't think it has a great design and posability. For Camelot, the axe arm is definitely very cool, and his arms are not that posable. They basically only go up and down.
However, with this catapult looking guy, he is our favorite. He has
Yes,
he's obviously catapult, catapult thing pushed down his mouth. Not only does he chomp, but a catapult flies. And it's just really nice. Unfortunately, his arms are only up and down, limiting our love for this silly little guy. But he has a lot that we like about him. And the other ones have some decent features too, not including the horse. We don't really like that one.
No.
But Camelot's pretty nice. He has a pretty big bite.
He could probably fit a Nixel in his mouth without having to open his jaw very wide. In the number 5 spot, and here we are getting into the top 5s, we have the Electroids. One of the most classic. People are always like thinking of these when you talk about Mixels. Velectro, of course, very, very good. His hairpiece is rare and goes for $7 a piece, which is very, very expensive. But otherwise, I'd say he has minor posability, but movable fingers, which is definitely good because I could imagine just sliding his fingers across each other.
And with the rest of them, I'd say they're pretty decent too. Still with not great arm posability, but these are the classics. Whenever you think of the top 5 list of the best Mixels, Velectro is always on there. It's like magic. It always just pop. It appears. You're like, man, I'm really hoping that, I don't know, Turg or whatever, or Nixbutt is gonna be on the top 5. You're waiting there, you're like, did they put them at number 1? No, it's Velectro, because he's just built like that. He's
Everyone
just
loves him.
very nice. He's like the best character and better than the Infernites, because while they're always what you think about, these are the ones that you're like, oh yeah, I really missed having those. Because they just have a really nice yellowy orange color scheme to them, along with being electric. They have one of the Palpatine electric things on top of Zaptor, and on Tesla over there, they have another one. Very nice. I think Tesla might be able to open his mouth a little bit. And I think they got a pretty good arm to leg ratio on Zaptor. Because while it isn't the best, they didn't double joint his legs so he's overly tall. And they have his body and head at a nice like thing. It's a shame when you get really good Mixels that can't really open their mouth, but it's always pleasant to see the rest of the design and be like, you know what? This one isn't that bad after all. And in the number 4 spot, we have the Elixers. Take it away.
All right, these of all of the Lego tribes or Mixel tribes, this is probably one of my favorites because of the designs of all the characters. Um, on the Lego website, I think it used to be described for Turg as a failed experiment, which somehow had some controversy, but we'll probably have to talk about that in a different video. I do like the tongue designs on all the characters, besides the dog, of course, because that's just too short. For this one, his tongue is double jointed. You could probably make him do a very cool pose with his tongue. As for Turg, he is just a really well designed character, despite, being controversial. And as I said earlier, the dog is just the ones keeping it down. This would probably be in the top 3 if it weren't for the dog. His tongue is just too short, but he has a mustache, I guess. That kind of keeps him pretty looking cool. And as for his legs, they're not that posable. He has like 4 of the ball joint legs. Um, Otherwise, I'd say it's just a good tribe overall. When people say Mixels, you won't think of these guys. They're kind of like a hidden gem. But otherwise, yeah.
I totally agree. They're just like, they're a nice little thing. And while I'm not personally a fan of like the one with the massive tongue and the wings, because I think it just looks a bit off from all the other Mixels, I think it's really nice. They finally did the dog thing right, even if they had to have a little bulky legs. But I think they're perfectly fine. It's a real shame that Turd can't move his arms around a lot, but the way he's positioned is already a absolutely perfect pose. I wouldn't have it any other way. I really like how he is right now.
All right.
In the number 3 spot, we have the Clinkers. I really like these ones. You got Gox, Jinky, and the forgettable one. Finally, in the top 3, these last ones are going to be like, we really don't like it. No.
We
Finally,
hate
in
the
the
ones in the top 3. We do not like the top 3.
anyways, finally here in the top 3, we're gonna have ones where like maybe there's like one Lego piece that we're not gonna like. But let's keep on ranting about the Clinkers for a second. Really like Jinky or Janky or whatever, kind of looking janky, a little bit lanky. Really like him. You know, very creative with all these steampunk guys. I really like Gox, especially since he has a playable feature where actually there's a little gear on the back of his head where if you twist it, you can move his eye around. I think that's really cool, even if you're not exactly going to use it every single time. His arms are a nice little balance, and I just really like him. He's a nice little guy.
Another feature I like about Gox is his legs, because those are pretty rare pieces. I think I've only seen them in one other set from 2014. Ironically, um, it was the it was not like a normal set. It was a game. It was called Lego Dimensions, and I actually own a few of these because of that set.
Yeah. Anyways, in the top two spot, my personal favorite group, and I think is really, really underrated because nobody talks about these, and nobody knows that they're decently decent. I'm putting the Orbitons at the top two spot. You don't find a lot wrong with these guys. You got posability on the arms, except for Nerpnot, who has a special feature where he can literally turn his head and turn from an old grandpa to a 2-year-old baby. Um,
Yes.
there's a bunch of really interesting ones. My favorite Mixel by far has to be Nerpnot. He's a silly little guy. He can open his mouth really wide, really nice posable legs. He's got a little flame in the back where he can fly. I like his arms a lot because they're like nice little wings. Very nice. We got Rocket here. Don't know if he's my least favorite or second favorite. I'd say most of these are tied except for Nerpnot. He isn't the one you find every time, but as I was like re-looking at him, I was like, yeah, this guy's not that bad. I kind of warmed up to him. He used to be my least favorite. Now he's tied with Nerpnot. And I actually may have like a slight bit of bias here. I don't think I really do because I just think these guys are really cool, really nice, have a lot of posability into them, and a lot of really nice bricks. I think the white, black, and green is a really nice fit together. But this was part of what made me rethink Mixels. One day I was kind of just being like, oh, hey, I wonder what Mixels there are. And I looked for one that was really interesting. And I immediately found the Orbitons, and I was like, I kind of need Mixbud. And that's kind of just started it. Talked with Ranter 1, had a bit of a chat. We were like, huh, this would be really cool. Couple months later, came up with this idea. Here we are. Might I add, Rocket comes with a Nixel, even though that's one of the things we weren't really gonna rank about or rant about. But just putting it up there because why not? I don't know.
All right. I do like that ranking. Thank you very much, Ranter 2. And
Yeah.
finally, in the number one spot, what we have been building up to this entire time, we have the Trashos.
Now,
Um,
before you say anything about Gobble, we have a different thing about the box. One of us really likes Gobble. Not gonna say who. Whoever it is, they're gonna rant about him for like another minute.
all right. So here is the reason why Gobble is one of the best Mixels. As he he may be a box, but he has like an open and closable lid, which makes it very good for keeping the things you put inside of him inside. And he's actually movable. Like, as opposed to all the other boxes, his legs aren't even legs, they're wheels. Very reminiscent of a dumpster, as you guys probably would have noticed. In the show they referred to him as a dumpster.
Dude, we're in a dumpster.
Come on, we've got to follow them.
But his arms only go up and down, which sadly, yeah. But otherwise, a great character.
Yeah. And the other ones also have some more to talk about him. Like, for example,
On the left we have
little,
Compacts. On
yeah,
Compacts.
Compacts is really nice.
Did you have a special play feature you wanted to talk about?
Yes, actually, I used to have Compacts back in the day. It's really interesting. If you look, he has a lever on. If you were Compacts, it would be on your left side. You have a lever in the back. If you pull that lever, a little flap opens in the back, so you can actually put things in his mouth, close his mouth, and you could turn the lever, open the back, and it would come back out. I think that's a really interesting play feature, especially since you could literally just put up like a couple like orange, just random one by one, like little Lego pieces. Just use him to scoop it into his mouth, close his mouth, open the back, shoots right out. Really, really nice Mixel. Liked him. Really
Yes.
do.
On the right, we definitely want to talk about him. His name is
Yes.
Sweeps. He kind of looks like a rat, but his mouth opens, which might have a place for a Nixel. But his arms, then this is where he comes into play. His arms have Lego brush pieces that have only been seen in a very few sets. One that wasn't even released, but that's not what we're going to talk about. His brush pieces, very rare. You can't even find them that often anywhere. But definitely very good play features, and I would like to point out that his tail is indeed a broom. Just goes with the whole street cleaner thing. Very, very nice.
Yes, Sweeps clearly resembles a rat, and I think this group is very nice. The yellow, slight like brown, got some and the green. I like it. Just all mix, very
Mix.
like nice. It's just pretty good, and they went all out on this because like sweeps. It's like a whole thing. Like sweeps can actually sweep things. Gobble can keep things like in his mouth and can move around with wheels, which is only seen in like one or two or like three, I think, because
I
there's the
guess
one from earlier, this one, and then compacts, which again has the really cool play feature. Put anything in him, he can put it out the back. It's really nice. These are top tier Mixels. We really like them.
all right. And with that being said, end of rant.